13 Reasons Why originally hit bookshelves in 2007, and now after 10 years, it has officially become a Netflix TV show, and I am breaking it down in my review. Well, hello there! Welcome back to another episode of Real Reviews, where today I'm actually reviewing a TV show this time. I know I usually talk about movies, but I've actually been waiting for 13 Reasons Why for a very long time, and so I'm just gonna share my thoughts on it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I don't read a lot. I think my parents forced me to read too much as a kid, and it just burned me out. But I will occasionally pick up a book, usually if it's gonna become a movie of some sort. So 13 Reasons Why is one of those books that I did pick up 6 or 7 years ago, and in all honesty, I picked it up kind of because Selena Gomez purchased the movie rights to it, and I was just kind of curious about her new project. And when I read the synopsis, I was like, this is something that I'm usually drawn to, so I'm gonna read it. And I read it, sped through it, and I loved it. It just had such a powerful message. It was done in such a creative way, this book, and so I was excited to see it turn into a movie. Well, as time went on, I definitely kind of forgot about the project because it kind of didn't go anywhere. And then a year or so ago, news came around that Selena Gomez had actually decided to not make it into a movie, but instead Netflix bought it, she was going to produce it, and they were going to turn it into a series. So at long last, after all of this wait, the series was just released, and just as I did with the book, I binged it, and it probably was not good for my emotional core, but I'm still glad that I did. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't have the best memory, so I don't remember all the details from the book, and I'm really not one of those hardcore picky people that is like, oh, this is so different from the book, y'all. I did want to reread the book, though, before watching the series, but you know, life happens, and I was just way too damn busy, so I didn't get the chance to. Let's dive into my review. So just a rundown, 13 Reasons Why follows Clay Jensen, a high school student who receives a box of tapes on his front door from an anonymous source, and they end up being tapes recorded by his classmate Hannah, who recently committed suicide. Now, there are a total of 13 tape sides to listen to, each detailing a different person's role in her death. And the tapes must be listened to by each person, then passed on to the next. And if they aren't, there's a second set of tapes that have been given to someone for safekeeping, and they'll be released if Hannah's directions are not followed. Now, when I read the book years ago, as most people do when you kind of read a book and you think it might be turned into a movie or a TV show, you start to dreamcast it as you're reading it. And I am no stranger to this. I did this. I always kind of wanted Logan Lerman as Clay, and for Hannah, I don't know if I really ever picked someone, but it would have been someone along the lines of a Brie Larson. You know, well, since it took so long for this TV project to actually come to fruition, those actors ended up kind of being a little bit too old to play high school sophomores. Although, actually, Logan Lerman might still be able to pass off as a high school student. But instead, the TV show ended up casting Dylan Minnette and Katherine Langford in the lead roles of Clay and Hannah. Now, Dylan does remind me a lot of a young Logan Lerman, even though there's probably only a few years age difference between them. And he's definitely, been working for quite a long time. He's had roles in Scandal, Goosebumps, Don't Breathe, Alexander and Terrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, and whatever. So he's done TV, he's done movies, he's been around a while. With the role of Hannah, they chose to go with a newcomer, Katherine Langford, and this is kind of really her big break, her first big thing, and she does just a fantastic job. Both these actors do a great job in portraying Clay and Hannah, and in a way that I kind of envisioned, and also in new ways that I didn't, that I think really enhanced both characters. Now, the rest of the young cast are actually relative newcomers as well, at least to me. I know I was only familiar with a few faces, including Ross Butler, who plays Zach, who I know from, Teen Beach 2 and Riverdale, and then Miles Heiser, who has an awesome last name, spelled differently, but still cool, who's from one of my all-time favorite shows, Parenthood. The younger cast is definitely a lot of newcomers, and I think they do a real great job of portraying high schoolers realistically. Okay, so I actually have not been in high school for a long time, so I'm not really sure what high school is like anymore, but to me it felt authentic. Because of the subject matter of this show, it can run the risk of turning into a really over-the-top Lifetime movie, which has been done a bunch of times, and a lot of that is due to the performances of the young actors. Thankfully, though, these actors keep it feeling realistic. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there are cheesy moments. The whole, oh, put your hand in FML thing, which was a little bit different from the book, definitely made me cringe. But thankfully, it never went too far over that cheese line for me. Now, I've seen a lot of shows and movies that deal with similar subject matter to 13 Reasons Why, and there's a lot that go too far in trying to prove a point or bring the drama, or they can go in the complete opposite direction, try to dumb it down or sugarcoat it. Now this show is kind of in the middle. It does a great job of trying to be realistic, and it doesn't shy away from the scary things. This show includes underage drinking, it includes sex, drugs, and of course they cuss as teenagers do. It also does not shy away from the really controversial things in this book, or in this show. There are warnings that precede a few episodes because there are graphic rape scenes and a very graphic suicide scene, which are not done in a gratuitous way, but in a necessary way to move the plot line along and portray the message of the show. Now, if anyone actually brings the over-the-top dramatics in the cast, I feel like it's a lot of the adults, and they kind of play to the stereotypes of the, helicopter parenting, the overprotective parents, with the exception of obviously Kate Walsh and Brian D'Arcy James, who play Hannah's parents, that obviously had a little bit more of an arc. And even with Derek Luke, who plays Mr. Porter, the school counselor, I felt that at times he was kind of overacting with what he was doing. Now the show does see a lot of changes from the book, which is most part I think actually to help enhance the story, and I don't want to give away a ton of spoilers, that's going to be for another video, but I will say that the story in the show takes place over a few weeks instead of a day like it does in the book, and this gives more depth to all the characters that we see, which I actually really enjoy. In the book, you really only get to know Clay and Hannah, and then we have to hear Hannah's side of the story, and we never hear anybody else's side of the story. And because of the TV show, it's spread out one tape per episode, and so it's over a longer period of time. We get to see the aftermath of Hannah's tapes and her decision and how it affects all the characters, the ones on the tapes and the ones not on the tapes. It just fills out the show a little bit more, and you actually have time to kind of build your own opinions about these characters and kind of decide, are they a good person, are they not a good person, is what Hannah's saying about them true, are there little things that maybe she wasn't right about. And like I said, if you want to dive into those differences between the actual book and the show, I have a video for that down in the link below. Now the con, because the show is kind of spread out more with an episode per tape, it does tend to drag. Obviously there are some tapes that are not quite as scandalous as others. For example, maybe Sherry's tape or Zach or Marcus. They don't have quite as full of a story. So those episodes drag quite a lot more as they try to kind of fill that space to make a whole episode. Something I'm definitely thankful for in the show is that they decided to not replace Hannah's cassette tapes with something like MP3s. There's just something about the tapes in the book that made that story different and made the book stand out, which is what I really liked about it. And like I said before, with such heavy subject matter, the show has that potential to turn into an over-dramatization or a PSA for, suicide prevention and anti-bullying, but thankfully it doesn't go there. Instead, it presents a very relevant and important issue in a very fresh and creative way. We live in the age of technology where cyberbullying and bullying in general is still very prevalent. People are able to hide behind a computer screen and say things without realizing the consequences of their action. Or even in real life, you may do something so small that you don't know what it's going to do to someone else's life. You have no idea what's going on in someone else's life, which is definitely touched on a bunch in the show. So I honestly think that this is a show that that people need to see no matter how old you are. Now I could probably keep talking about this show for quite a while, but long story short, or this might already be kind of long, as you can tell, I really like this adaptation of the book. The ending is obviously different from the book and leaves things open for a second season, which would be pretty interesting to see how they do that, considering the book itself was a very contained story. This is definitely one of the best book-to-TV adaptations I've seen in a while. Granted, I actually haven't seen Big Little Lies yet, but I do hear that's a good show. So those are my thoughts on 13 Reasons Why. If you read the book, did you like it? Did you like the way that it was brought to life? And if you haven't read the book and this show was your first introduction to the story, what did you think? I want you to leave me all your comments down below or on my social media. Links are down below as well. And like I said, I'm not usually good at a rating system, but I'm going to give this, in Lisa's rating scale, an A-. It will definitely draw you in, break your heart, make you feel some emotions, and just make you think about life in general. Alright, so if you have made it to the end of this video, high five to you. High five to all of you who have subscribed to my channel also, and if you haven't, you can hit that button and then check out some more of my videos over here, including a breakdown of the differences between 13 Reasons Why, the book, and the show. I'm Lisa. Until next time, guys, shine on!